the Operations Bridge Summer Series. My name is Olivia Sultanoff, and I'm in product marketing here at OpenText for AIOps. And the reason I wanted to bring this session to you today is oftentimes we navigate our leaders through innovations such as AIOps and observability. So I wanted to give you some insight into what your CTO may be thinking about. And hey, who better to ask than a previous CTO himself? I have here today Lars Rosen, Chief Architect for OpenText and creator of IT for IT. And thanks so much for joining, Lars.
My pleasure. Looking forward to this session.
Thank you. All right. Well, I know you're a busy guy, so I'm going to jump into the questions. But before I do, I'm going to be throwing a lot of statistics your way. So in case you're wondering where those statistics come from, we recently commissioned an independent survey. I guess surveying IT leaders about AIOps and observability. So here's the first stat for you, Lars. 86% of IT leaders plan to adopt an AIOps platform to enable observability. What does observability mean to you?
Well, it's almost in the word, right? You're trying to observe what is going on, and you could say, well, isn't that what operations has been doing since the dawn of ages? I don't know how many decades ago when the field was founded. The shift that is happening now, and the reason why we are starting to give it a new word, observability, is that traditionally the operations people have had no insight into the actual use of the products, the services that are being delivered out of IT. So yes, we know it's running. Yes, we might know that it has decent response times and it's performing well, but we don't really know how it's being used. Right, and whether it's being used in a good sense. Are people logging in and giving up and logging out again and not really getting any further? And it's got great performance, but well, and many users logging in, but nobody's using it, right? So that's observability, to actually start getting that insight. Unfortunately, that's not easy. That's the downside of it.
Well, I love that answer because that leads me right to my next question. And, in our survey, we found that 79% of IT leaders say their downtime would have been reduced if they had better AI systems to identify root cause. What are your initial reactions to this? Is downtime still the biggest issue?
You get what you ask for, right? And so there is an aspect of the fact of saying, well, has downtime been an issue? And that's probably still is an issue. The unfortunate case is that systems are getting much more complex these days and much more interconnected. So where in the old day, downtime was simply the server had a motherboard failure or whatever, right, and stopped working, and then the application was not working. This is not really an issue any longer, at least not in the same degree, right? And it's also pretty easy to find the fault, right? Suddenly the server's not answering, the application running on the server is not okay, and then, yeah, Bob's your uncle, you know what to do. But when it comes to these complex systems, nobody really knows. It's so complex to figure out, right? And so you need to have experts to figure it out. And you can only hire so many experts. They are expensive. And that's where AI comes in. Fortunately, we are also developing AI technologies these days that can actually help if applied smartly.
Yes, and that's, I think smartly is the key word there for sure, especially developing AI and all the things we've heard. And actually we're gonna get into that a little later with AI. But another part of our survey is, AIOps in the migration to the cloud were actually the two most effective strategies that were reported to reduce IT operation costs in 2023. So I guess what's your reaction to that? Like, is that the most effective ways to reduce the cost of operations in 2023?
So given, and I talk to a lot of customers of ours, and looking at what is the state of the business that a lot of organizations are in, then I would say absolutely yes. It's almost a no-brainer. You can plug in the power to an ops bridge with built-in AI. It will discover what is going on, and it can do a lot of correlations. It is not uncommon for us to see that we can do a 90% reduction in number of events you need to deal with. It's not solving the entire problem, but it gives you focus, right, and sort away all the complicated stuff and actually gets focused. So with the people in principle, you can halve your operational staff, or you can deal with twice as much if you get those 90% irrelevant events filtered out. And that's pretty simple deployment of AIOps. You can do much more with it, but getting started, absolutely, it's a no-brainer.
Love it. All right. All right. So, and I love to give you that question because, in this year, especially where everyone's talking about cost, right? So I wanted to throw that one in there. And, that your answer also leads me to my next question. So, you have a lot of experience, Lars. So here's my question. Which side do you lean on? Is it balancing for performance optimization, or is it optimizing for costs?
It goes to some degree hand in hand, right? So it's like if you have focus on only the one and not the other, then you might shoot yourself in the foot. Performance optimization is in many ways also cost optimization, simply by the fact that you right-size the amount of infrastructure you're using and the way you develop. That's very important. It's not only about the deployment of infrastructure, but also how you configure and develop the products that are running on the infrastructure, so that you exactly use the resources that is needed for a given job, right? And so it's not too slow. It's doing what it needs to do in a performant manner, but you're not wasting cycles on CPU. So you have optimized the cost of the underpinning infrastructure. So you can really solve both problems at the same time.
All right, Lars, I only have a couple more questions for you today, and I'm going back to AIOps. So organizations, they're often slow to implement AIOps. And I have a feeling that's because of trust. So how do you see trust playing out in AI innovations, and what are some of those roadblocks?
That's an excellent question. I think the starting point should really be to realize that AI is more than large language models. It's more than the classical ChatGPT. I call it classic now. It's almost half a year since it was released to the world, and people were very surprised about how convincing it was, but also hallucinating at times, right? And but there are many other kinds of AIs, and depending on what problem you try to solve, you need to apply the right kind of AI technology. We've been applying AI for decades in our solutions, and only recently have we started using these transformative, generative large language models that really is designed to please people, not necessarily to be intelligent about topics, right? And so it is a problem applying them. You have to be very careful how to apply these kind of AI technologies. But there's also a great opportunity around them if applied correctly.
I love that. So it doesn't seem like you trust these large language models yet.
I don't truly trust them, right? Because again, it's just a tool that is very smart at making a conversation based on a lot of data about the world, if you will. But for the large language models, it's more about making a conversation that pleases me than actually presenting facts. There are ways that can be overcome. And so the classical application is in the help desk, right? Saying, well, there are a lot of facts in knowledge briefs, etc., associated with the help desk, and how can you use the large language models to make it more accessible, but still check the data that comes out of it. So this is what we see is a lot of evolving. Well, it's very evolving field in general, right? But this is what we see happening, and this is what we are implementing ourselves in our product as one example of AI. But there are many more.
Well, I love that, and that kind of brings us to our next question. It's actually about large language models, and I want to dive a little bit deeper on it because you mentioned how large language models can help us with our help desk, right? can you think of, how else we're going to immediately use large language models and IT ops? Like, is there any other use cases you can think of?
Yeah, no. So obviously, this is the most classical one. You wanna have a more patient level one support agent than the human that just want to close the case as quickly as possible, because that's what the humans are typically measured on in level one support desks. And also getting hold of a person that actually knows the entire realm of the problem space. And typically, you can't afford having very highly trained people at the level one help desk. So that's the obvious use case, right? But another use case is if you go behind the scene, you have a real issue in operations. You have your very skilled employee trying to debug what is going on. There are still large language models and other AI technologies can help tremendously in focusing, trying to find knowledge for the operators, because even if you're highly skilled, it is a very complex world, and there's a lot of material to know about. And so this can help speed up the process, help people get to the fingertips all the information they need in a quick and conversational manner. So absolutely also something that can be applied internally in operations. And that I want to end that part of it also with saying, and that's a good place to have large language models, because if it should hallucinate, then you have an expert that can actually understand it and say, yeah, okay, I can't use it this time around because I know this is wrong, right? And so only use it as a guide, but not as an authoritative source.
Absolutely. All right. Well, hopefully, large language models will make us all a little smarter one day. But those are all the questions I had for you today, Lars. Thank you so much for joining. And I just thought I'd mention, in case you're curious about some more of our findings that we found about AI ops and observability, we have a nifty infographic for you that you can find on the registration page to dig a little bit deeper. But without further ado, I just wanted to thank you so much for listening, and take care.